Welcome to Inspire, and we thank you for joining us. Today we're examining a serious topic of food insecurity and food deserts. Food insecurity in the Sunflower State. Coming up next on Inspire. Come with us. Inspire is sponsored by Kansas Furniture Mart, using furniture to inspire conversation. And by the Blanche Bryden Foundation. Hello, welcome to Inspire. I'm excited to be here with my wonderful co-host Danielle Norwood and of course Amy Kelly and you. This is a serious topic though. In Kansas, 16% of our population does not have enough food to eat on a regular basis. 1 in 6 children in our state consistently go hungry.
And more than 30% of Kansas counties are classified as food deserts, which the United States Department of Agriculture defines as not living within 1 mile of a grocery store in urban areas or within 10 miles in rural areas.
On today's show, we're taking a deep dive into the topic of food insecurity, examining who is impacted by food insecurity, looking at some of the barriers to obtaining healthy food, and also talking about what you can do to help. Joining us today is Dan McFerrin from Project Topeka, an all-volunteer organization providing food for hungry families since 1986. Welcome to Inspire, Dan.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Glad you're here.
There's so many questions that I have that I'm going to try to restrain myself because I'm passionate about this topic. So we're going to start off with the definition of food insecurity. What is that?
The definition of food insecurity is not having consistent access to enough food to have a healthy and active lifestyle. I think that's what I've seen the U.S. Department of Agriculture define food insecurity as.
And how is that different from being hungry? Because there'll be some people that will say, isn't that the same thing?
You can be hungry, but you can still have access to food, right? You have the means and ability to go get food and solve your hunger. But food insecurity means you don't have that consistent ability to go get that food that you need to solve that hunger problem.
And when you're insecure about your food, you're insecure about so many other things, and being hungry means that you can't concentrate in class, you can't concentrate at work. Expand on that, please.
Well, yeah, if you're hungry, I mean, as we all know, when you go to work, if you're hungry, you're not going to be able to work. It's going to be tough to work. You're not going to be able to concentrate, get your job done, do what you need to do. If you're in class as a kid and you're hungry, how do you pay attention? That'll lead to engagement issues. Kids won't stay engaged. They're not going to be able to answer questions. They're going to act up because they're hungry. If you don't have that food, what can you do?
We live in a civilized country. We have a lot of money in the nation and the state. I mean, how can this happen? How can there be that level of food, of hunger and food insecurity in our community?
I think it's a tough topic to talk about. I think it's hard for people to understand and realize that people next to them are going hungry. People don't want to admit that they're hungry. People don't want to talk about that they're hungry. People don't want to say that they're not having that access to the food that they need. I'd even say, just my opinion in this, politicians don't want to talk about it either. It's a tough topic because there isn't an easy solution. If you had an easy solution, we wouldn't have the problem, of course. So it just makes it really difficult to address it if you don't know what's really going on.
Project Topeka is helping. How so?
Project Topeka is, we've been helping, like you said before, we've been around since 1986. And for the most of our 35 plus years in existence, we've been helping locally here in Shawnee County. And what we've been doing is collecting food through food drives, through businesses or people or organizations, and also collecting funds. And then we take that food and funds and give it out to 7 local agencies. So the money that's raised here and food that's donated here in Shawnee County stays here. So it's going to help the people. When you give locally, it stays locally.
Let's tell about who those 7 are, because I know Let's Help is one of them, Salvation Army is
Yes.
one of them. Who else?
Topeka Rescue Mission, I Care, Faith and Fellowship, Doorstep, and Topeka North Outreach.
Talk about the people that you see. Are most of them poorer, or how does that work? Because I'm sure that COVID brought in some different people because just of the lack of jobs and so forth.
From our standpoint, we don't actually see them. Since we give the food and funds to the agencies, the communication I hear from the agencies, in the last 2 years, it's changed. There's been more demand for access for their services. More people need the food, more people just need that help to get by. They're not able to make it week to week or month to month. I know the food, and then the agencies are running out of food sooner. And then the cost of food, especially in the last year, has just gone up so much. It's even harder for these agencies to purchase the food that they need to get by.
And fresh fruit. I mean, that's almost, you can't even hardly get that, correct? Like if you want to put an apple in the bag, I know you guys do bags. Will you tell us about those?
Yeah, we can't do it because we don't have the ability to do the perishables, but the food drives that are done for the agencies are non-perishable items. So they're getting all the cans and non-perishable items. The funds that we give them, a lot of them use it and go to the grocery store, and then they will purchase butter, eggs, meat, bread. So they're using that to buy the perishables that they need, and they can buy it, since we're providing those funds and paying that bill for them with the funds that are donated, they can go buy it on a regular basis to help keep those items in stock.
So talk to us when we were before we started having filming today about the projects that you do in some of the schools here in Topeka.
Sure.
Tell us about that.
Sure. For years, Project Topeka is doing, raising funds and food for these agencies. And about 5 years ago, we started realizing, that part has slowed down quite a bit. We don't receive the food and funds that we used to, for many reasons. But we thought, what else could we do? What other needs are not being met in the community? And the one thing that kept coming up over and over and over is hunger among kids. And how do you help these kids? And so we had an opportunity to find a partner for some funding to go out and look at what could we do to help. And so we started talking to local schools, especially USD 501, and we wanted to talk to them about, what could we do, what could we help, how's your programs, what needs not being met. And what came up is kids are going hungry on the weekend, and they were not receiving the food that they need. When the kids are in school, they're getting breakfast when they come in, they're getting fed lunch, there's some free and reduced lunch programs, and so kids are getting fed there, but as soon as they go home on the weekend, they're not getting the same food because of the food insecurity that's going on. And so the backpack programs that were in their schools currently, the need in the first school we're going to, they had around 80% free and reduced lunch qualification, or maybe called the poverty rate, and that school had about 390 kids at that time. But they were only receiving 20 backpacks or bags of food on the weekend, and they had to pick 20 kids to go to. So we decided, okay, that's obviously not meeting the need. How do you, and it's not only not meeting the need, it's creating a stigma about food assistance, and teachers and the principals were having to decide which 20 kids are the most in need out of 390. And then they have to put it in their bag, and it's tough. It's tough for those kids. They don't want to be seen as the one that needs the food compared to the other ones. And also finding out the kids were not actually eating that food either as well. And so we decided to try a test program. We thought, okay, what if we were to come in and give 100% of the kids at that school a bag of food to take home with them on the weekend? Would that reduce the stigma attached to food assistance? But also, would it help them with engagement? Would the school see engagement, attendance, other things? Would all of that increase if we could do that? And so we decided to test this with Randolph Elementary. And the reason we chose Randolph Elementary, the administrator there at the time, Dr. Grays, was amazing. And we needed a champion in the school to help us out. And he was in there, and he just championed the program. And so we started to test this program, and the results the first year were, we didn't even expect. We couldn't even, they blew us away.
Right.
You know, kids, everyone got the food. They were eating of the food that was in the bags. They were, you know, if they could take it home, they didn't need it. Some of the kids who didn't eat it, everyone was still taking it, but they would take it home and give it to other family members that need it, donate it at their church or something. So we know the food they were given was going out and going somewhere.
Yes.
And as Dr. Gray would say, the first year they noticed engagement increased, they had attendance increase, and he even says academic performance increase. We're not going to take credit for that, of course. You put that on the teachers and principals, they do a great job. So if those kids are coming in and not being hungry, you know, they're able to participate and do more in school. And then the other thing I'd like to mention about that program too is when we said we'd go in and help provide food bags to the school, we also said, what are the other food needs that you have? And they talked about those teachers having to give out granola bars or food to the kids out of their own pocket, and they were paying for it for those kids that were coming in late and missed the breakfast. And so we said, okay, we can do something about it. And so we started providing more Nutri-Grain bars and some individual other snack packs to the school nurse, and we provide them on a every couple week basis, and that helps them so they can take care of that hunger need for that kid for that couple hours till they get lunch again. So
this is fantastic, and thank you, Dan. And if you're probably wondering how you can help, we're going to get you in touch with that. It's a very important topic. I want you to know that Project Topeka, everybody that's working on this is a volunteer. So if you can volunteer, or if you can get some money, help them pack the bags. They put 9 items in every bag every week for the kid to take home. So please do help us. We'll be back with just a little bit more information about an oasis in a food desert. You'll like this. Stay with us.
Welcome. We are back, continuing our discussion on food insecurity. Joining us now are Janet Cathcart and Marge Arns of the Central Topeka Grocery Oasis. Welcome to Inspire, ladies. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so what is the Central Topeka Grocery Oasis?
The group started 4.5 years ago. A grassroots group of 8 neighbors got together to attempt to see how we could develop a grocery store back in the area of Central Topeka at 12th and Huntoon or Lane, where there had been a grocery store for 89 years previously, until we lost our Kroger in 2016. And actually, I met a neighbor across the street. He said, we need a grocery store. And I said, well, we do, so let's do it. And we began calling people like Jan and other community leaders in that area, and got together and began working out how we could possibly do this.
I love it because it's all neighbors. You all had a cause, not only food though, but that's where you saw each other in the grocery store aisles. You knew what was going on in the neighborhood. It was a sense of connection as well, correct?
Yes, yes. And then we actually had sent out a survey too, you know, to finding out what services people want. And that was one of the things that came up a lot, was like, you know, we miss seeing our neighbors. We miss having a place to just, you know, go and kind of get our shopping and hang out and, you know, socialize a little. So that was, that's something that they definitely miss.
They also lost the ability to get
prescriptions.
Prescriptions too, for sure, but also even postal services and money orders to pay bills, because we have our community is not a banking community. It's it's a community that operates on cash.
Yeah.
And to find those services now, ever since 2016, is really difficult.
How many people were impacted by the loss of Kroger?
Well, we are operating under the assumption that the 9 neighborhoods through the central part of Topeka are most affected, and it has 12 to 13,000 people.
Wow.
It's they're almost all neighborhood improvement organizations, and only one is not. They have been struggling, and in every kind of degree. So we found out with our data research that 25% don't even have access to a vehicle. And that 35% of the households have at least one disabled person.
Wow.
We're operating with some pretty difficult data, which gave us much more of a drive to work towards some kind of a solution that would meet the needs and then the specific needs of our own neighbors.
And talk about the senior community, because I have a passion for making sure that they're taken care of, because a lot of times they get left to the side. They don't have family members that are coming in to check on them, and not having a grocery store that's like close to them, then there's a struggle for them to get those kind of things that they need. Talk about the impact on them.
Well, for sure, if you don't have a vehicle, and if you have any kind of a disability or impairment, which happens to us as we age, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can make light of the degree of trouble for people.
Yeah.
Even people who are getting food stamps in that community, the average is only $120 a month.
Wow.
Are you
And
serious?
That's right.
You can't eat on that.
At all.
And you can't eat on it.
Let alone feed a family.
Let
That's
alone
right.
get medicine.
Right.
Right. We know that 30% of the people in those 9 neighborhoods live below poverty.
Wow.
That's a bunch. And 2 of our census tracts have the highest degree of both poverty and food insecurity in the county. That gives us a lot of reason, again, to work to resolve the problem on a permanent basis and sustainable basis. We want to open something that can really last and is directed towards those people.
So the situation in which we find ourselves is that the Dillons, that was downtown at 12th and Lane, closed in 2016 after 89 years, you said. Now that it's closed, the information I have, 12,000 people in that neighborhood, over 5,000 households,
Right.
no longer have access. I mean, the closest grocery store is miles and miles away. You talked about solutions. Please give us good news. What are some of the solutions on the horizon?
We've had neighbors who've come in and helped other neighbors go out, but we want to provide the store so people have independence, because that's a lot of it too, being able to just go to the store themselves, not having to rely on, a ride from a family member, a ride from a friend, or from, another organization or something. We want it to be able to just, a lot of people walk in our neighborhood, so, just being able to access it that way. We have, Grace Med's one of our partners. We've had partners also with the Sunflower Foundation is one. Topeka Community Foundation has been helping us.
Kansas Health Foundation, which gave us money for a market study that showed that indeed a store could do well there. It isn't because it's a bad location, because it's a great location.
Now, you were working with people in Holton. Explain that, how that partnership.
Well, we just talked with them this morning and learned how they started a store. And their goals were different, but they showed they could do it, and they could do it profitably. And we're at a point now where we're ready to develop a business plan. So we talked with Carly Worrell, who created that store with her cousin. It specializes in fresh meat. That was their goal. And they're successful. Our goals will be to specialize in serving our neighbors. And we have a partnership with Grace Med, which is working towards our final lease agreement with them to to lease the 1 acre site at 12th and
Washburn.
12th and Washburn. Everyone, and people think it's under construction now because of the street work. But there's a 1 acre site there, and we know that we can build a 14,000 square foot store with 10,000 square feet of retail.
Right.
And that's the same size, it's close to the same size as that new store in Holton. And they have a big box store just down the street. So we know. We also know there has been a store at 6th, the Tiltons has been there since 1935, and it makes a profit. It is successful, and it serves the people right there. It's smaller, so it serves people in that area well with creative ideas. So we know that we can do it. The location is precious because it's right in the middle of that band of people who are without any access.
Right.
Well, Janet and Marge, what you've told us today is inspirational. Let us know how we can be a part of it, because obviously there's a need and we want to be a part of the solution. So thank you so much for being on Inspire today. It has touched my heart. After the break, we're going to talk about what you can do to help others facing food insecurity in your community. Please stay with us.
I'm Jennifer Case. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over 20 years now. Jiu-Jitsu titles that I've earned, 6-time IBJJF World Champion. I've been a Pan Am champion, won all kinds of opens and pro fights and that sort of thing. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's basically submission wrestling. You start on your feet, so there is a wrestling, judo, sambo type component. You gotta try and get your opponent down, and then from there, once you're on the ground, the idea is to get your opponent to submit. So you're trying to do a joint lock or a choke, something to get them to basically say, "Uncle, you win, we're done." And that's kind of one of the things I love about Jiu-Jitsu, is because it's the only martial art where you can go all out and not worry so much about hurting your opponent. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was originally, like, the big draw was that it was a style of fighting where the smaller person could beat the larger person. And the reason why is because in Jiu-Jitsu, you learn all about how to use your body for the most beneficial leverage point. And today, when I was out there rolling, a lot of those guys are over 200 pounds, so they're significantly larger and stronger than I am. But by putting your body in the right position, using your legs and getting that leverage, getting that mechanical advantage, you're able to put them in a bad position so you get the win. And when you take that into the self-defense realm, I used to teach at sororities quite a bit, because with those young ladies, if I could just teach them how to use their hips and their legs to get out of a bad position, create a little space and run away, that's all they need for self-defense, right? You don't need to stand there and trade blows with somebody. That's just silly. It's the street. If you're getting attacked, you just need to figure out, how do I create space and run away? And I love seeing our kids class grow, because as those, particularly the young ladies, right, they're gonna go off to college and they can do all the right things, not go to the bad parts of town and this and that, but something can still happen. It's a dangerous world. And so to see those junior high and high school girls learning some jiu-jitsu before they head off to college, I think is wonderful. So it has changed so much. 20 years ago when I started, when I came into the gym, the guys did not want me there. They literally were trying to beat me up to get me to leave. But being a stubborn farm kid, I just was like, okay, let's keep going, I just nose to the grindstone and just kept at it, and finally I started submitting them, and then they were like, oh, okay, you can stay, we like you now. But what that did, us ladies that were stubborn enough to stick with it and take our beatings, and the men started realizing, hey, these ladies are here to train, they're not here to be a distraction. And so they started being a little bit more open and a little more open to ladies coming in. And what I've really seen in the last 5 years is that they're a lot more welcoming, a lot more open to having the females in the gym and seeing that there are ladies that are here to train and not be a distraction. And so I think that's really helping the sport to grow.
Glad you stayed there, because we need you to help us. There's so many people in need, you guys. Let's go back to Project Topeka, packing 1,000 packs of food every week to be taken home by the kids, given out by fellow students on the weekends.
Yes. Oh, it's fantastic. Dan was saying that they started in Randolph School, then they were able to move to Loman Hill, then they're in Highland Park
Central, right?
So there's 1,000 kids that they are able to service, and they have 12 to 15 volunteers who show up on a Tuesday, and they pack all these bags in 2 hours.
That's
And then
amazing.
they're all non-perishable, so that it lasts for a long time. And then they take them to the schools, and the kids give them out to their kids, and it's 100%. Everybody gets one, so there's no stigma.
No stigma.
There's nobody has to know exactly what's going on in their home lives, and these kids get food. It is so inspiring.
And they give them things they want to eat. Like some cool cookies, and maybe on Valentine's Day, little treats.
Put a little
and
heart in there, some
and
candy
junk
hearts.
things. I think that's awesome.
And the other thing about it is, in Central Topeka, there are people who are working. It's not that they don't want to work. They've got education, but they're just not making much money. They're the working poor.
There are a lot of people that were affected by COVID losing their jobs, and they ended up being on the receiving end of getting those groceries. And think about being in a food desert, having to try to go and get all of your groceries and put them on a bus. And sometimes there are people who take the carts out of the store, not because of anything nefarious. It's just that they need to get their groceries from the store to their house or apartment. And
they have to take their kids with them because there's no child care.
Yes,
so it's just a big.
It's a lot.
Right.
It is a lot, and we have to find a solution for this, especially when some of the highest numbers of people who are impoverished are in one particular area, not just in Topeka, but also in the county.
And in that particular area, what we learned, there's about 50% of the people are of color in that area, so that's disproportionately represented. But 95% are employed.
Yes.
So it's not like they're just lazing around. I mean, they're working hard, but they don't have access to food. That's ridiculous.
Well, and they don't have great jobs either.
Right.
I mean, if you're working a job that's like $7 or $9 some bucks an hour, and you're trying to 40 hours a week on that, you're going to have to work multiple jobs just to be able to pay for rent, or if your kids need medicine, or if you need medicine. I mean, there's just a lot of ways that the dollar is not stretching as far as it was previously.
It is not. But you know what? If you have some dollars, we want to stretch them, and you can do it with either the Oasis group that we were talking about, Project Topeka, or if you can volunteer your time. That is all the time we have for today. But we hope you've been inspired by today's conversations, and we hope you inspired to take action in your community, in our community, and you can watch this program again at watch.ktwu.org.
And if you are so inspired to learn more about our guests, find out what's coming up on future shows, and to get access to additional content, be sure to visit our website at www.ktwu.org/inspire.
Inspiring women, inspiring community, inspiring you on KTWU. Thank you for watching.
Inspire is sponsored by Kansas Furniture Mart, using furniture to inspire conversation, and by the Blanche Bryden Foundation.